everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to try to do a quick one. I wanted to throw up a quick review of the new Aether Beauty Joshua Tree eyeshadow palette because I did use this in one of my more recent get readies with me's, which I will link down below if you want to see some of the shades in action, because today I am absolutely wearing this palette, but I will not be showing you how to achieve this look. So if that's something you want to see, I can do it for you. Otherwise, you can see these shades in action in that get ready with me video, but today I'll be swatching with you, sharing some of my thoughts and opinions in the most concise way possible because I'm very excited about this palette. So, and before I get into the review, quick note on my hair. Yes, my hairdresser invited me in, both of us wearing masks. We were the only one in the salon, the only ones who will be in the salon. I'm sure she'll spread this out and do it every now and again, but very, very safe. And I did get a little bit more color added to the front of my hair, which is what I initially wanted, but I was a little bit afraid to do so. So in the name of explaining myself, consider myself explained. So first and foremost, the packaging. If you are unfamiliar with the Aether Beauty packaging, they are completely cardboard because they are a 100% recyclable item, which I think is fantastic. You will also notice that there are no magnetic closures, that they do actually close with the elastic here, which is something that I really do appreciate. And then when you flip it around, you have a little layout here of all of your shadows with the names listed on the back as well. When you open it up, before I threw it away, there is a plastic layer that does name the shades as well. I think that's really just to protect the eyeshadow rather than keep it for reference. And then you will notice that they are mirrorless because, again, in order to be a fully recyclable item, they had to have removed the magnets and the magnets and the mirror, so it is a sustainable item. So you will notice that this is quite the colorful palette. It does retail for $55 and you do get 12 shades in here, so it really can do quite a bit. What I really like about what they've done here is that you can really separate these into different color stories. One is very, very colorful. The other is very, very neutral. So you have these more grounding colors that, though they're in interesting tones, they are very easy to use and do a very beautiful warm toned eye, which is sort of what I've done up top here and then added a little bit of color there at the bottom. So we have definitely some really cool color stories going on here, and they're all matte. So I think that makes them probably even more usable, and I think this is a great palette to mix with maybe an Aether palette that you already have, because all of those palettes do include both matte and shimmery shades. But I think a matte colorful shadow is a little bit more approachable and maybe a little bit more usable for that sake as well. So something to note on the formula before I get into swatching: any sort of natural eyeshadows that do not have any of the synthetic binders, you will notice that when you put your brush in the pan, there is just a lot more fallout than you would experience with something that is not an all-natural item, and that is to be expected. But also, a little bit of looseness in the pan like that is not necessarily something that I look at as a bad thing either, because it does normally mean that there's going to be some give and that the blending is going to be really, really great on these. And with matte eyeshadows, that is something that is already harder to do by nature. Usually metallic or more glittery shadows are just a little bit easier to formulate, and they have done such a great job. I'm so excited to share with you. So they blend really beautifully. Pigmentation is very nice. You will see that as well. I do think some of these shades translate a little bit different on the eyes than they do finger swatch, so do keep that in mind. But for the most part, you will get a really good idea for sort of what we are working with here in this palette. And I did sort of work with only the warm shades here today, so if you want to see me play more with these, it's definitely a darker look, let me know, but I'm having a lot of fun using this in the meantime. So let's just jump right into the swatches. Oh, just quick note, by the way, whenever there's a lot of excess, you could always just tap off on your brush or go ahead and do your eyes first. That way you don't need to worry about any sort of fall down on the face. But I did my face first today and didn't experience it on the cheeks, just a little bit rustled up in the pan. Now let's get right into the shades. I'm gonna start here at the lightest one. The lightest one here is Pixie Rock. Now, I love this shade because I think that this is a necessary shade in the palette, but it does also remind me a lot of one of my favorite single eyeshadows, which is the Sappho Monica shade. And why I love it so much is because it really acts as that really beautiful brow bone shade, or a great thing to sort of block out the lid if you're doing a cut crease or something like that doesn't really work on my eye shape. But anyway, it has a little bit of a peachy tone to it, so it acts as a very neutral nude shade, but has a little bit of warmth that I think sits really nicely on my skin and on most skin tones as well. Moving right along, I think that we will go, I guess I could have done this a little bit better. I should have started here at the top. So I'm gonna go back up to the top and then we'll go back down. So up top here is the shade Tumbleweed. Tumbleweed is one of the darker shades that I have here in my crease today. Really beautiful, very warm tone brown. It's a level up from what I would use as the crease shade here, but this would be a great crease shade for a darker look that you have in mind. Skipping Pixie Rock, because I talked about that first, we're gonna move right down here to Poppy. Poppy is one of my favorite shades here in the palette because it is a beautiful, true mustard tone that blends like a dream. If you have green eyes, if you have blue eyes, these type of shades look particularly amazing. And I always like to have just a kiss of this sort of haloing just the top of my matte eyeshadow, because that warmth peering through I think is very, very flattering on my skin tone and my eye color as well. But it makes for a really great warm transition tone, which really pair nicely with all the shades that we have here on this end. Finally, in that little quad, we'll call it, is the shade Rosewood. And Rosewood I sort of did use as a faux liner on the outer corner of my eye here today. It's much darker. It's still incredibly, incredibly warm. It almost has a little bit of burgundy to it, but it makes for a really nice definition, adding shade with a whole lot of warmth. Now let's get into the center here. The center here is a lot of fun. This is a lot of our brighter pops of color. First of which is Citrine, and it is very aptly named because it is a very muted yet very true yellow tone. So again, this is very mustardy, but has a lot more yellow than orange, as opposed to that poppy shade that I shared with you just a few moments ago. But those all really work nicely together. The yellow is a really different shade. That is what I have on my inner eyelid here today. So it does read as very yellow, but it's not a very bright out there neon yellow. Next up, we have the shade Ember Glow, and this is probably my favorite shade in the palette. It's just so a me eyeshadow. I love orange eyeshadows. I think they are really quite wearable. I have a tiny bit of this on the outer eyelid here, just to sort of tie into that yellow shade, and it is just a true tangerine color. It is a tangerine dream. It is absolutely gorgeous. It's a little bit brighter than that yellow shade, but again, not overly neon, not too scary, really quite a wearable shade. Going down to the bottom here, we have the shade Prickly Pear, and the purples I think are the ones that differ the most on the eyes, as opposed to how they look in the pan. The shade Prickly Pear in particular I did use in my last video, and it just reads a little bit darker on the eyelid, but it is this really beautiful mid-tone, slightly murky purple, but it really pulls off as very true purple, but it's very wearable. I say this very often. I think purple is one of the more wearable colors. I still think we're in a very wearable zone right now, which is what I really like. The tones are so unique and different, but really quite wearable. And for someone like me, I don't experiment with color a lot, but when I do, that is one that I would definitely gravitate towards. And again, it pairs really nicely with those warm browns, a lot of these lighter, warmer tones that I've already shared with you. Finishing off this quad is the shade Wildflower. Wildflower is the shade I have underneath my eyes today. I did put a little bit of glitter on top of it. This is a much more blue toned purple. I've never really seen an eyeshadow shade quite like this. It's absolutely gorgeous. I really, really love this shade. And it's not patchy. The purples are not patchy, which is something I was so excited to see. Blended really nicely underneath my lash line, but I did apply it quite heavily because I did concentrate it in that sort of clown shape that I've been liking to do. Now let's finish this off with these green tones. These are the only tones that I haven't really dug into. I did think I used one of these darker green tones as a liner, but I'm excited to play with them. First up is the top shade, is the namesake of the palette. This is the shade Joshua Tree, and it's a really gorgeous true hunter green. Has quite a bit of depth to it still, but it is not so dark that it's almost black. It does still read as a very true green. Next up, we have the shade Mesquite. And Mesquite is actually a really beautiful, deep, dark, chocolatey brown. It's really rich, very cool tones. It almost has maybe a tinge of purple to it, but really is quite a rich chocolatey brown that would make the perfect faux liner shade, or to add some really nice deep dark definition in the outer crease. Next up, we have the shade New Moon. And New Moon is actually a black shade. I think they may have featured a black in one of their other palettes. I will write something here if they have, because I can't remember off the top of my head, but it's a really nice, deep, dark black. I always like when that's included in a palette. I know some people sort of love it, hate it, but I think it is a very nice, wearable way to get some definition on the lashes, especially if you are not looking to go for winged liner, because I know using all the color plus a winged liner can be quite a lot of look. This is always a nice thing to have, especially in a palette setting. Rounding this palette off, we have the shade Agave, and Agave is beautiful. It's like the deepest, darkest, most amazing teal. I will say there's a little bit more fallout with the shade that I noticed than the others, but the payoff is gorgeous. These are all really, really velvety to the touch as well, and they blend amazing. This one you just need, use a very light hand with this one. It is a beautiful huntery green teal shade that I love. So now that I am all swatched up, I'm going to make sure that I include a photo for you down below so you can reference these shades, see if it's something that would work for you. Overall, I think it is an amazing palette. I know it's not for everyone, but for those of you who sort of already have everything and want something that's definitely wearable but will push you outside of your comfort zone with some staples, I love that this is a one and done eyeshadow palette. Unless you did want to go in and add a little bit of shimmer, I love it as well. Like I said, I do think this is a great addition as well, because as someone who has all the other Aether palettes and uses them relatively frequently, it is nice to have a formula that you know is going to work beautiful, that has a lot of different variety all in one place to mix with those, rather than some of the other ones. It's like they're all very different actually, but you know, as a brand who's looking to continually make palettes in the future, you want things that are going to mix and match well together and can also stand on their own. So I love it. This has a black, I love that it has a brow bone shade, has several different transition shades, several things to deepen up the crease. You really can go quite a few different directions with this. And like I said, I have used this in one of my Get Ready With Me videos, so I'll include it down below if you want to see them in action. For now, this gets a very big thumbs up from me. If you want to see me do a makeup tutorial with this palette, definitely let me know. I can bring that for you. I think this has moved in line as my favorite. You know, the summer solstice was always my favorite. And if you would like me to backtrack, review some of the other vapor palettes that I have and that I love and that I've definitely used here and there on the channel, let me know that as well. I could bring that for you. But this is available now on Aether Beauty. Sephora carries this as well, so if I get this up in time for the VIB sale and it's available, you could pick it up there as well. Let me know if there's anything else from Aether you want me to try. They have a cheek palette they just came out with. They have lip creams on Sephora. That's a Sephora exclusive. I love to bring you some more reviews. I know it's been a while since I did a sit-down one, but this is worth it. So I'm going to link this down below for you, swatch photo as well, so you can reference these shades as well. But I hope you found this helpful. Any questions that you have, leave me a line. I will absolutely get back to you and help you to the best of my ability. But thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for all the love and support, and I will catch you guys in my next video. Bye!